my name's Greg Brookes and this is my Shenston Road EM gauge. I was born in Birmingham and I quite like the heavy industry side of the Black Country, so the layout is basically based on that area. A fictitious line between Wolverhampton and Birmingham, which would have been the old Great Western line, but with a station added on, which is called Shenston Road. The steelworks, which is the main part of the sort of back scene for the layout, is a homage to Bilston Steelworks, which I used to see back in the 60s, where some of my relatives used to live relatively close to it. Yeah, it's my interest is late 60s, early 70s when I first got the railway bug. Even though I am a career railwayman, I've worked on the railway for nearly 45 years now. My main interest was the pre-tops era, when I first got interested and excited with the railways. The smells, the massiveness of it, the noise, the just standing and being, as a young child, sometimes quite frightened of some of the things that was happening. It just made a mark on me, really. It's about 25 foot long from end to end, which forms the main back scene of the one side of the layout. It's a fully scenic layout, so it's scenic both sides, and it runs. It's a double circuit, so it runs round the top of the scenic section, and then back round underneath into 10 through running roads where I can have a various selection of trains in there. But I wanted to maximise really the detail that I could actually put in. It's a lifelong project, so obviously I needed to max out on everything I could do, really. I mean, it doesn't really do the steelworks justice because some of these plants are over a mile long, you know, but it's as best as I could afford at the time, and try and just grasp a small piece of it. A lot of the buildings started off as old Walther's cornerstone kits when they was easily available. The instructions were basically thrown away, and then they were kit bashed to fill a specific part of the works, really. There's a lot of structures that are scratch built. I've been lucky with my job in being able to work in and out of Lamworn, Shotton and Port Talbot, so I've been able to get photographs where a lot of people can't really get access to, and specific structures that I've enjoyed putting together just to get the scene and the atmosphere, which I think the atmosphere is the most important part of this. You know, a lot of things are not strictly true, and when somebody that works in the steel industry might say, well, that wouldn't actually be there, that or whatever, but it's just a slice of trying to get a bit of atmosphere of an industry that sadly is now virtually gone. Yeah, the exchange siding, once I'd laid it, and started scenic in it, you know, putting the grasses and all the stuff that's usually lying around there, it sort of started to jar, looking how dead straight and mainline looking it was. So I decided to distress the track by widening to gauge a lot of areas where joints would be or logos would sit or whatever, to give it that pretty rough look about it, but by widening it to gauge, it was still operational, so I didn't have derailments or whatever. Everything still runs through it. They wobble around it a little bit, which is exactly what I wanted it to do, and it now pleases my eye, looking at, you know, more like the track work that I'm used to running when I'm in these private sidings. Basically done by eye, trial and error with a pair of pliers. Bit ruthless. It was either going to work or it wasn't going to work, and cost me a lot of time and effort, but it worked well, and hopefully the photograph will show what I tried to achieve. But it certainly looks to me like it's pretty unkempt and not had a lot of money spent on the real thing as per the prototype. A good friend of mine had a spare Walther's building that I was eyeing up, and he let me have it. I had this particular part of the layout, there was a space where I'm not sure quite what to do. There was going to possibly be a scrapyard or a coal dump, but the space really wouldn't do any justification. So I thought perhaps I'll put a private an industrial loco shed, which again is very rarely modelled. It's usually a BR shed somewhere on the layout, but I thought no, I'll do something different and model an area which would have actually gone hand in hand with the works. It's mainly empty wagons in and strip coil out. It was the era where strip coil was mainly produced, and there was a massive shortage of wagons, so that then gives me a variety of wagons that I can use, you know, whether they're opens with cradles in there, mineral wagons with cradles, wall flats, specific locos built for the crayocoidals, so I can run all of those. And there's hopper wagons, ironstone hopper wagons can be run in there, which are then taken off scene to wherever the iron ore would be dumped. And same with coal wagons, and of course the empties in and out from there, and then really obscure looking wagons, like I've managed to get hold of some Conflat LDs, which a good friend of mine has printed on his 3D printer, so they're quite an eye-catching couple of wagons. Most of the wagons have either been scratch built, kit bashed, or modified from one way or another. I still use 3-link couplings, so they go in stanters or screw couplings. I still like the look of that. Working on the railway, big bar couplings seem to, or caddies, still jar with my. So while I've still got the eyesight, I can still use the correct couplings, and also, you know, buffers and things like that. I like to put if I can, put all the correct buffering gear on there. I was actually born in a street called Shenston. Well, I was actually born in Dudley Road Hospital, but my first house was Shenston Road in Edgbaston. So the layout takes the name from Shenston Road, and it is basically somewhere within that area, not far actually from the Birmingham Road and Carriage and Wagon factories that was there. But our front of the house used to look across to the Cape Hill Brewery. So I've had to include a brewery on the layout, and it's basically, it was quite an industrial area where we first lived, so I've tried to include that really, and give it that type of aura about it really. To be honest, I've maxed out with the amount of stock that I've got, and at any one time there's probably only about 5% of the stock that I actually run on here at a time. A lot of it's still squirreled away in storage boxes. But we moved from Birmingham in 1969 to Hereford, and I got the hydraulic bug. So a lot of the stock on there, my favourites have got to be the Class 52 Westerns, the Hymex warships. Some of the stock is pushing the limits a little bit, but it's what I like really. But I've got big selection of Midland based stuff, class 40s, 20s, 37s, basically anything that's available. I've got my hands on, and I've modified and poured over photographs to try and represent the actual loco that I've modelled. A lot of the train concerts actually used to run through Eddyford, so I've scratch built a lot of trains that work through Eddyford. I've managed to get hold of a lot of works drawings and stuff and photographs, and of course the marvellous internet now that's available. There's a lot of information there on there. A lot of this was actually done pre-internet, so it meant a lot of trawling through books and magazines and whatever. But a lot of the trains also do sort of fit in with the Birmingham area, which, to be honest, around the Bescot area and Salty area, you could virtually see any type of freight train anyway, because of the amount of industry that was served. With the road vehicle, obviously the buses, the Birmingham Corporation buses, is quite a stamp on the layout. So I've got quite a few of those. The bus stops I'm really proud of. I managed to copy off the internet, photocopy off the internet some bus stops, so I've scratch built those, with little ticket bins on the post. So even the smallest detail really gives you the atmosphere that I'm trying to do with the layout. The road vehicles are all of the era, or I've tried to keep up of the era of the West Midlands, or should I say the Black Country. That sounds a bit too modern, the West Midlands. It's basically just looking at 60s and early 70s photographs and really going down into the detail of everything from the roadside furniture to the type of gutters to how the pavements were laid. It's the way the roads were marked. It's still a lot of work in progress, but that's the beauty of this hobby. It never stops. The idea of the roads was actually came from a good friend of mine, Keir Hardy, who a lot of people probably will know that he has Ribden Shaw, and has now got his new layout based in East London, Hornsey, Broadway. But we used, as he has used, emery paper, the fine emery paper, which gives a nice texture. It's round about the right colour, but you can also colorise it anyway and put skid marks and whatever. And the road markings are basically masking tape cut into strips and stuck down. It's difficult to paint because of paint creep on a rough surface, but it certainly works well with this sticky tape. I'm not really keen on building buildings. I've never got the eye for it, so I've had help again from Keir with some of the buildings. But I have built a lot of buildings, especially the steelworks area. They're all my type of thing, but I like to see the finished article, so that's what spurs me on. But it's not my forte. Weathering wagons and detailing locos and stock is what my main forte is, and I quite like doing the track detail as well. Some of the fine stuff like rail flange greasers and bits of old sleeper condemned markings on them and bits of old rail and that type of thing, which all sort of adds up. But it's the stuff I see daily in my working life anyway, so that's it. We moved to this present location 22 years ago, so it was actually started then from the building up. It's a brick built building that it's in. It's a specific building for the model, so it's a standalone building in the garden. So it was started 22 years ago, again calling in a lot of favours from my brother and friends to build the building, and I've been lucky based here that I've got quite a few good modelling friends that have got good skills, so that have helped me build the building and do bits of carpentry, but a lot of it I've done myself anyway. It's just it can be a one-man band, but it's a nice thing to socially do if you can include people as well. Running trains. Losing myself back in the era where there was proper trains with proper numbers. Just really transported myself back to the late 60s, early 70s. The best stress relief you can ever go, providing everything goes right. Sometimes if it doesn't quite go to plan, it can be a little bit of a pain, but all in all, it's a fabulous hobby. You can meet fabulous people, and it's an hobby you can enjoy sat here on your own, losing yourself, or you can have a bit of banter with like-minded friends. Basically, because it's so complicated, because it's on a split level, because it's double level, it would be an absolute nightmare to try and match baseballs at an exhibition. I didn't want to compromise the look of the layout. I really did try to push myself as far as I could possibly go to try and get as realistic a look with the layout, and I thought if I was to use it as an exhibition layout, there'd be just too many compromises for me. P4 obviously is the more scale version, but for point so much of a millimetre, I thought EM, for me, with my skills, I could manage that. I could get the track looking right, but I could still get things running. I thought with my skills with P4, I'd spend most of the time trying to re-rail stock and probably in the end lose interest with the whole thing. But the EM is a nice way to go. You get a nice, I think, the track looks good. After spending so much effort on the detail, the locos and the stock, it was a shame to compromise the gauge. We're very lucky that as I say, there's a small group of and to be fair, they're very skilled modellers, all living locally. So basically, it's our latest projects will appear on there. Something that I might have found, dusted off, and thought, oh God, I'll give that another run again. Which again lights a spark, so that might well be on there. But Kia's website, I mean, there's some absolutely brilliant modellers on there. There really is. I mean, this is nothing compared to what some of those guys can produce on there. So it really is. They've got some fabulous standards, and it's a nice website to try to aspire to, which I'm trying to do all along, because at the end of the day, this is the beauty of this hobby. You'll never stop learning. There's always something to light that spark.